It can get hot living in a van during the summer. Luckily, there's a lot of ways you can stay cool. Okay, hit me. Stop splashing. I'm pretty sure we figured out the best option, but don't worry, it's not this. What did I say about my face? Now there are several options for keeping your camper or RV cool, but they all range in price and efficiency. In my first van, I attempted to use a window unit because it was cheap and somewhat efficient when it came to power consumption, but I didn't ventilate it properly and it ended up not working for me. I eventually settled for a rooftop AC unit and it worked to cool the van really well, but you needed to be plugged into shore power in order to use it. This time around, we wanted to make sure we had something we could run off of our batteries, a 12-volt unit. So we ended up grabbing an evaporative cooler from a company called Fresair.
Evaporative coolers, also known as swamp coolers, work by pulling in hot, dry air, which is passed through a moistened pad in the unit. The damp pad absorbs the heat and the moisture within the pad evaporates, cooling the air down as it's pushed by the unit's fans out into your living space. The unit needs a continuous intake of dry, hot air, which is why it's perfect as a van rooftop unit. The installation of the Fresair unit itself is much like the installation of any other rooftop ventilation. It comes with a really simple template and instructions and cut lines that you can center on the roof of your van or wherever you plan on installing the unit. We placed ours directly over our bed area toward the rear of the van since that's where we spend the majority of our time.
We used the ribs or indentations on the roof to help center everything, but it was quick and easy. We taped the template down, traced our lines, and got ready for cutting.
Ow.
One head bonk a day keeps the doctor away. Van diaper up. That's just gonna help avoid having a messy cleanup. We cut out our 13 by 14.5 opening using a metal cutting jigsaw. Okay. All right, and our diaper worked.
Caught it.
And then went back and cleaned up our edges using a file. Make sure to coat any bare metal with a primer to avoid rust. Also, clean off any metal debris or else it'll leave a bunch of rust marks the second it hits water. Oh, and make sure the unit fits and it's in the correct direction before you start installing things permanently. I'm pretty sure these wires should be coming out the end. So once you know the unit fits in the hole that you just cut, it's time to uncover the bolt holes that actually mount the unit to the roof of your van. Those are located underneath the filter itself. The filter is held down by 2 clips on the back end and then it's tucked under a lip on the front. And you'll notice that there's a water line still connected to it. And I don't know if you can disconnect that. We didn't. We just rotated that filter to get access to those bolts, which are identified by little red caps.
So we're using a 5/16 drill bit and we're gonna go into our first universal bolt hole and drill all the way down. And that's gonna hold your unit in place and then you can go and drill the other holes.
We kind of struggled with this a little bit. We tried to just take our drill bit and pop holes using the unit as a guide.
No, what?
But some of those holes land on those raised sections of our roof, which made the bit kind of fall off the side. We then just marked the spots where those holes landed, removed the unit, and then popped the holes with our drill bit. It made it a lot easier. Holes. Then we took our unit, put it back in the hole, made sure that our new little bolt holes all lined up properly, and then we traced the exterior of the unit because that was going to help us for the next step. So your Fresair should come with 2 rolls of foam weather stripping. One of them is going to be 1 inch thick and the other a 1/2 inch. The inch thick is going to go directly to the Fresair unit itself. You will attach it just on the inside of that honeycomb plastic. You can then use that trace line to attach the 1/2 inch weather stripping. So you have 2 layers of weatherproofing for your unit. We're gonna have to cut our excess here now. We'll try to set it on a flat where you're gonna meet. You don't wanna have to do your joint on a rib. There. So once you have both rolls of weather stripping applied, you'll want to go and add a bead of silicone on the top of the weather stripping to like double down. And then you're ready to sandwich it down on the roof of your van. Okay, so we're setting our bolts in.
You have to put, we're putting rubber washers which come with the bolts.
These.
So put rubber washer on the bolt and then pop the bolt into the universal bolt hole.
Ah, you got it.
Okay, so we got all 4 of the bolts in, and we're gonna put the caps back on. These are the waterproof kind of sealing caps. And then we're gonna rotate this back this way. Okay, got it. 2. Okay. And
Back clipped. Okay, now we gotta put the lid on. But before everything gets attached, you might wanna add some furring strips on the bottom. When you put your bolts and apply pressure, you're not gonna just squish the metal of your van. It's super thin. That gives it some rigidity. We just used a 3/4 inch waterproofed piece of birch, I believe, and used the second longest bolts to then hold it down. So it goes bolt, washer, lock nut. Julie's gonna hop up and watch as it slowly compresses, tight enough to form a watertight seal with that weather stripping and silicone.
Now with your unit installed on your RV, it's time to go back for some more waterproofing. Even though you've already installed 2 rows of weather stripping and applied a bead of sealant in between, you may notice that there are still some gaps, especially in the areas where you have raised ribs, if you have a Sprinter like ours.
Now they send you with a tube of lap sealant, but because I don't like the way it looks like melted ice cream after being applied, I tried to go grab more sealant to then fill those gaps and blend it in better so it had more of an aesthetic appeal. Well, after we did that, a few months later when we were parked on a slope in heavy rain, we noticed there was some water coming in through our unit. So we had to then go back and get some Flex Seal, black Flex Seal, and seal it all up again. Now it's completely waterproof, but we should have just used the lap sealant they sent with us. You know, we just wasted time and spent more money. All right, so let's move on to the wiring and plumbing of the unit. Now the unit has several wires coming off of it along with 2 tubes. Now one of the tubes is the water injection line, so that's going to be coming off the pump from a little reservoir, and then a return line, so coming from the unit back into the reservoir because it circulates. And for the electrical, you've got your positive and negative to power the unit. It comes with a little fuse in it, but we wired that directly into our fuse panel, which we covered in our electrical video, and we'll put a little link to that. And then you have power for the pump as well as power for a float sensor. Both the float sensor connections and the pump connections come with connectors on them, and we cut those off. That's because we wanted to fish both the plumbing lines and the electrical lines through the body work of the van. We wanted to like hide it behind our walls. Okay, there's our first bit of conduit. So you can see we're protected there. Loom. And we're running through, and then they'll feed into there. There's a hollow channel on the side of the van. We fed some conduit or split loom through. I think it was like 3/4 inch, and then we also put some 1/2 inch over the lines themselves so that they wouldn't rub up against any exposed metal. And after about a half hour of fighting with it, we eventually just like taped that split loom really tight and got it through. Fluid lines and then the electrical all in 1 3/4, and now it is out and through, and we have access to it at the rear of our vehicle.
So originally we planned on placing the water reservoir on the driver's side of our van where we ran the water lines down. But after completing the rest of our plumbing system, the reservoir no longer fit over there. So we ended up mounting it on the passenger side, which meant that our water lines were no longer long enough, and we had to add extensions to get the lines over to the reservoir.
Okay, so in this mess of stuff, we have some vinyl tubing, and it's got a 3/16 inner diameter and a 5/16 outer diameter. But we got this size because that's what this is roughly. We have these little 3/16 barb. We've already put this one in place, but they're gonna get cinched down using these hose clamps with a little spit, and hopefully it just kind of goes on. And then to cinch it on.
One on each side.
One on each side. I didn't put the other one on yet. Okay, so there's our connection. It's not pretty, but it should work fine. Now we're gonna do the other one.
And we also had to extend the wiring for the water pump and the water sensor that are on the reservoir.
You don't fit, dude.
So after we extended everything, we mounted our 18-liter reservoir tank in our garage on the passenger side using the brackets that came with the kit. Now, the reservoir itself comes pre-installed with a pump and a float sensor for horizontal mounting. You can rotate it and mount it vertically if that's better for your install, but for us, we left it horizontal. If you do change it, there are 2 holes that are plugged up that you can then open up and then move the pump and the sensor. If you don't move it and you keep it the way it is, they do recommend that you seal with silicone those plugs just in case so that there's no leaks. We did that later on. Now, wiring the pump and the sensor is pretty straightforward. The float sensor has a quick connect, and all you have to do is click that in. The pump itself is marked with a positive and negative connection, so you just connect those directly to it. Then you put your injection line to the side of the pump and slip it down into the grommet.
Would you get down?
The only other connection you have is your return line. Now, there are 2 barbed nipples fittings, I don't know what they're considered, and one is large while the other is pretty small. I don't know the exact dimensions, but the smaller one is the one that you're going to want to pop a hole through because they're sealed. So we just used a drill bit a little bigger than 1/8 to open that up, and we just connected the hose using a hose clamp, and that was it. It was all wired up and ready to go. All right, it's about 10 a.m. and we are currently in Phoenix, Arizona. It's currently 91 and we're gonna have a high of 99. If you look at the humidity, 15%. Not only is it very hot, it's also very dry. We figured this would be like the perfect climate to put the Fresair unit to the test. One thing you have to use it though, is fill the reservoir with water. So every time we fill this, we have to pull all of this out. So I squeeze my body in here and you can see it builds pressure. We put the drainage here and the fill here. So it's kind of backwards. It was the shortest setup we could do, which is why we did it. But it would have been easier to put the fill on this side. So now I just stay down here, hold this in place while Julie takes this other end and runs it off the sink. So we're gonna fill this up and then start putting it to use. So in the van right now, it says it's about 83 degrees. So that could be our insulation at work, or it just hasn't got hot enough in here yet. The controls for the Fresair unit are super easy. You've got power, which is gonna kick it on for us. Then you've got your fan speed, and then you've got your pump. And then this is just a little dome light on there. You could use the fan without using the pump, which is what we do when it's cooler out. It's not as hot and we don't really need the pump running, but we're gonna kick it on. You've got like 5 speeds, I think. I'll cycle through them. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5's pretty loud, but it's gonna give you the most cool dispersion. Is that a word? As you can see, all of our blackouts are up as well. Now, if you're in a more humid climate, you can open windows so it doesn't get too like damp or swampy in here. But since it's so dry, you don't notice it. So we're keeping it a tight little box. So I'm probably gonna leave it on the 3rd speed, just because it's not as loud and it cools it off enough. And we're gonna let it run while we make some breakfast, and we'll see how much it cools it off. It'll probably be an hour, and then we'll go about our business throughout the day and let it run and see how we do.
So the water's coming out of the bottom, going up into the unit, and then when it's done with it, it spits it back out the top. Alright, so it's been running about an hour, and it is about 80 degrees in here, so it's dropped a couple degrees.
Yeah.
But keep in mind it's also 94 outside, so it's gone up outside. But if we're working here out at the table and we have the fan blowing on us,
yeah,
it feels pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, we are at our second location of the day. It is 78 degrees now. We didn't find shade. The dogs will have to stay in here for about a half hour while we go get the shot. But after this, we'll have ran it for about an hour and a half, close to 2 hours maybe, and it's still running totally fine. So we're gonna go get the shot and we'll be back. We'll see what temperature it is. All right, so the temperature didn't change in here really. It says 79 now. It actually got warmer.
Because we opened the door.
Yeah, now I think we gotta head to the library. And that's where we'll sit for a little bit. All right, so we are at a public library.
Free Wi-Fi.
Parking lot Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We couldn't get there in the best shaded spots you could see because they are...
For electronic cars, electric cars.
So we are stuck in the sunlight. We have a little shade from a tree above us, but we're gonna kick it back on.
We'll get to work.
All right, guys, it's peak heat. We did just have the door open for a while, so we let some of this cool air out. It was at about 81, but it is 99 degrees. And we are in direct sunlight. It is cooler right here. Like, I am okay. I'm not sweating. I know 82 is not like super comfortable, but I'm not dying. See, he's comfortable.
He looks pretty comfortable.
I'm editing, and this is what I do. I sit at a library and I edit, and if it's too hot, my computer shuts down.
Has it shut down yet?
And it has not shut down.
So it's 5:30 p.m. and our low water warning light has just come on for the air cooler, which means we're almost out of water in the 18-liter reservoir that we have. And that means it's either about to get really hot in here or we need to refill the reservoir to allow the pump to keep running.
It ran about 7 hours, right?
7 hours at probably like medium fan speed with the pump on.
Yeah.
And it kept us about 20 degrees cooler than it is outside.
18 liters is like close to 5 gallons. So we went through that in around 7 to 8 hours. So if you want to run this all day and all night, or like in between, you're using about 10 gallons a day or more.
Yeah.
And, you know, depending on the amount of water you carry, that could be a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
Cool, that's our test. There you have it. I'm choking to death. I'm starving.
He's eating day-old popcorn.
Library's closed.
Overall, we're pretty happy with the Fresair unit. In a dry climate, it lasts for about 8 to 10 hours and it lowers the temperature by about 15 to 20 degrees, and even more if you're parked in the shade. Fresair even has a chart on their website that shows you, based on the humidity of your region and the temperature that you're at, what the unit's efficiency and expected temperature change will be. Because it's an evaporative cooler, it works by adding moisture to the air. So if there's already an excess of moisture, say somewhere like Florida or Louisiana, it's not going to be as efficient at lowering the temperature as it will be in somewhere like Colorado or Nevada.
The other thing that we're pretty happy with is just the overall size. When you think of like an air conditioner or top unit on an RV, you think of this like big bulky lump. You know, it's like a wart on the top of the van, but this is super sleek. It's so like low. You can fit it underneath our cargo rack. We even have a cargo box mounted directly over top. It's also very energy efficient. I think it pulls between like 3 and 5 amps depending on the fan speed you put it at. So you're only looking at like 30 to 50 amp hours over the course of an 8-hour period, which isn't much when compared to, say, like a regular rooftop AC unit with a condenser.
Our one biggest complaint is just how often we have to refill the reservoir, which, if you have the reservoir mounted in an easily accessible location, is probably not as big of a deal as it is for us. Because it's mounted in our garage and we kind of have it buried in all of our gear, we constantly have to open the back and pull all our gear out to be able to get a water hose in there and fill it up. In an ideal world, we would have hooked the unit directly to our 50-gallon water tank. That way it would last longer, and when it came time to refill it, we could just use the fill water gate on the exterior of our van, which is super convenient. All in all, it really is a great little unit to keep your RV or van conversion cool when it's hot outside.
But if you want to know the best way to stay cool during the summer months, go check out this video. So it was pretty hot in Phoenix, but we're in Flagstaff now, and it's like 65 degrees. I did get to run around in my underwear here though, in front of some folks, so that was nice. Lieutenant Rock, ice cream.
Okay, go, run.
All right, time to clean up.